No, it's fine.
There now.
Good.
Right, a very good evening, East Africa. Thank you so much for all of you who are watching us right about now. This is In Focus, and my name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Now, every Sunday, we meet right here on the program to put on the table some of the major burning issues and current affairs issues. And tonight on the program, the region has just concluded its second East Africa Business, Manufacturing and Exhibition Summit right here in Kigali, Rwanda. The sole purpose of this particular forum was to look at the issues affecting the manufacturing sector and how to sort out those particular issues. Major statements have been made at this particular forum, one of them coming from the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Rwanda, His Excellency Anastase Murekezi, who actually said during the opening of this particular event that let's never forget that the private sector is the engine of transformation we need in the manufacturing sector. And so, is the private sector ready to do or carry out this particular role? And the question we're asking ourselves also on the program tonight is, can regional manufacturers satisfy the East African market needs? So, I'll be introducing my panelists in just a while. Do stay with us. Right, we have a very able panel right here with us tonight. We have none other than Lilian Awinja, who is the Executive Director, EABC, East Africa Business Council. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Also on the program is Laban-Cliff Onsario, a very good friend of mine, a business journalist from Kenya. Thank you for joining us on the program, Laban.
Thank you for having me.
Also on the program is none other than Jean-Baptiste Havugimana, who's the Director, Productive Sectors at the East African Community Secretariat. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we also have the Manufacturers Association represented on the program by none other than Claudine Mukeshimana, who's the Executive Director, Rwanda Association of Manufacturers. Thank you for joining us on the program. We'll start off with Lilian here, because Lilian, when we had a press conference, you know, there were statements that were made in preparation for this summit.
Yes.
And one of the goals was to actually iron out the key issues affecting the manufacturing sector. Today, the summit is over. Dust is slowly settling. What can you say about it? Did you win? Did you carry the day? Did you successfully, succeed in your agenda that you expected to have at this summit?
Yes, I think we had a very good manufacturing summit, very well attended, and strong attendance from the public sector and the private sector. Of course, we had the Right Honorable Dr. Ali Kirunda Kivejinja, the chair of the Council of Ministers, coming for the closing session. And as you said at the opening, we had the Prime Minister for the Republic of Rwanda, Honorable Murekezi. We had the Honorable Minister, Francois Kanimba from the Republic of Rwanda, the Minister for Trade, Industry and EAC Affairs. Then we had several permanent secretaries, a very strong representation from the business community and the international community coming to share best practices and help us get where we are going. Right. So this was very, very well attended, very good recommendations coming through, very good presentations from the speakers and panelists, the key presenters, and we have good recommendations that we can take forward.
Good recommendations that we can take forward. Laban,
yes.
Moving beyond just the flowery representation that, Lilian talks about, how or what would you look at and gauge and say, this event was really successful, coming from the first summit which took place in Uganda? I'm sure when they left Uganda, they said the same, that we've had a very successful summit. But as a journalist who goes on the ground, looks at these business issues, peruses through and reads between the lines of the speeches that they make, would you categorize this summit as a successful one? Was it successful? Basing on what?
Well, thanks, Eugene, for having me. Full disclosure, by the way, I was a moderator in the summit, and I was also moderator in the first summit. So I've been able to see this right from inception to the second year running. But today I'll wear my journalistic hat.
Yes.
The East African Business Council has a very strong mandate, of course, courtesy of the East African community, just looking at, mobilizing the private sector across the region. If you look at particularly manufacturing sector, yes, we keep on saying that, it's 10% and there's a lot more that can be done, perhaps in terms of just boosting the manufacturing sector.
Yeah.
But I feel that the plane has already taken off. Like we're just, starting to gain, the high altitudes and just getting there. Of course, there are issues to be handled. Of course, the issues about non-tariff barriers, looking at, what manufacturers keep on saying, that can we also have a one voice? What came out, by the way, during the summit is that perhaps is more of an individualistic approach.
Yeah.
Note that this actually came in from the Secretary General of UNCTAD, Dr. Mukisa Kitui,
yeah, saying
that, now the region should now be speaking as a region instead of looking at the individualistic countries.
And through the program, we'll delve a bit deeper into that, the nationalism versus the regionalism, and of course, how that affects intra-regional trade. But why I'm asking this is, and I'm worried. I don't know if you'll be able to represent this properly after making that disclaimer over there. How would you judge? Because we're looking at results from the first summit. Moving on to this second summit. What are those things that you can point and say, you know what, then this was successful in tackling some of the recommendations that were made in the first summit, and so it was successful?
You see, this 2 years, to be honest, if you're looking at a region that is, has an agenda up to 2050 to increase trade by 60%, of intra-regional trade by 2050 to be 6% of the EAC, there's still a lot more to be done. Because you look at 6 years and you're comparing to 2 years. So I wouldn't say, say for instance, and I like giving scores. So I would look at it, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll still give it a 2 for now.
2 out of 10?
Yes.
Jean-Baptiste, I'm going to ask you a question, but before I ask you that question, I want us to take a look at what Lilian actually said concerning the challenges that still remain. I'm sure we're going to be playing that, and then we'll pick up from there on the challenges that still remain when it comes to, manufacturers and business community in the region.
What is happening is that the free circulation of goods has not been done to the level that is satisfactory. So there are a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of impediments, a lot of NTBs. You find this season goods can move freely, the next season they can't move.
So she mentions the challenges that still remain. And there seems to be a seesaw of, situations and the climate for business community. This season, goods can move freely. The next season, they do not. Bottlenecks still remain. Yet the East African Community Secretariat celebrates of having created a smooth environment for the business community. I would love to hear your thoughts on the statements by Lilian.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Some resolutions were taken during the East African manufacturing, the first one.
One of them was the removal of
one of them
barriers.
was to address issues of bottlenecks, including the NTBs. Indeed, we did not address all of them, for example, the NTBs, but up to now, 70–80% of the NTBs have been addressed. So we are remaining with 21. And those 21s, they also address them, but they keep coming. There are some which are cross-cutting. Once you finish to handle some, others, they can come in. With the modern trade, with the new technology coming in, with the new, trading system, and the technological trading system coming in, there are so many new issues coming in which you can not control overnight, but you need to gradually actually address them.
Okay. In just a bit, we'll talk to Claudine, but I want to hear, first of all, a reaction from Lilian. Lilian, listening to that, does that make you worried that the Secretariat is saying that, we cannot promise you heaven on earth? We can't promise you that we are going to deal with this 100%. Does that worry the business community? Should that worry them?
It is worrisome because the partner states have committed themselves that according to the protocols that they have signed, they would remove all the NTBs and ensure that new ones do not arise. So we find that not satisfactory because we should implement the commitments we have made. NTBs have to be removed and there should be no new NTBs coming up because we have committed to allow free circulation of goods. If the goods cannot circulate in the region, then we have no business marketing EAC as a huge market. Yeah. So Laban, if you're interviewing him and he told you that, what would be your next question? What would be your concern as a journalist hearing that
you know what, we can deal with this, but new ones will come. We're in a technology world. And Lilian here says that is actually a worrying statement. NTBs have to actually, there should be a commitment to remove them and actually block new ones from coming.
So if you ask me, if I was interviewing John Baptiste, I'll be like, no, let's go to the nitty-gritties. What are some of these other 22% that we need to address? And even give a score to the countries and say, okay, Kenya, you're failing on this, Burundi, you're failing on this, Rwanda, you're failing on this, you know, such kind of things, so that even even though the 5 member states take caution onto, you know, how are they contributing to the 22%, so that you can even call them to action.
Sure, that will be our next item, but let's bring in Claudine here. You represent the manufacturers, you know, the Association of Manufacturers in Rwanda. Going to this summit, what was the Rwandan team taking on the table, you know, to call on their partners or even, you know, the officials to deal with or to tackle? What were the major issues that you are bringing on the table in this summit?
That is a good question. First, it was really a good opportunity to advocate for our members. The first thing we did, for example, for plastic bags, we have a good discussion with other members, past state members, and there we found that Rwanda is doing very well, and the other countries, they should do the same. But maybe the issues is how we can put there some safeguards to protect our environment. That is a big issue for the AC countries. That was number one. Another issue we handled, it is about city review, as my colleague said. This is a big issue for AC countries. So this was really...
So how is it an issue? Just help us understand that.
For example, for city review, some of countries can say we need that product for 25%. Another one said, I want these products for 0. And if you see, as Lilian said, we should think like one country, not to think about Rwanda or Uganda, to think just to have one voice for everything, to harmonize everything.
Right.
Understand that also.
Right. And speaking of harmonizing, let's just shift gears a bit and take a look at what the UNCTAD director, that is Dr. Muhisa Kitui, said concerning nationalism and regionalism as far as the campaigns for individual East African community states are concerned, and then we'll move the conversation from there. Let's have a look at that, if we may, from the control room.
Opportunity to buy your own is an important sense. But I was saying that we have to be careful. While it's important to break the myth that good products come from abroad, it's important, while growing that consciousness, also to grow brand East Africa. So that made in Rwanda, made in Uganda, or made in Kenya, Kenya started this long before others, is a good idea vis-a-vis what is imported from outside the region. But we should also not let the East Africa brand made in East Africa disappear.
Perfect. And I'll still start with you, Claudine, because there's been a very concerted effort to push brand made in Rwanda. There's a very strong made in Rwanda campaign going on. The Honorable Minister, Francois Kanimba, said that the purpose of this campaign is to change mindsets. That you know what, goods that are made in Rwanda are also of high quality and can also be consumed and can also be sold out there, and it has no effect on intra-regional trade. Let's talk about your reaction to that, pushing for made in Rwanda and it not affecting intra-regional trade. Do you think there can be a balance in there?
I think made in Rwanda is a good strategy also. The thing we have to do, for example, if you say the product from Rwanda are good and so, but you should also know that some product from Uganda also, they are good. If the standards are harmonized, that is, the consumer will have an opportunity to choose between Uganda products from Kenya, because the quality will be the same if the standards are the same.
So what are you saying, because before I leave you and move to the next panelist, so what you're saying here today is, if, let's say, you're saying that your members are comfortable with opening up doors for importation of products that your members can manufacture here in Rwanda.
In EAC.
You're okay with that?
Yes, we are okay. If the standards are the same, if all processes is respected, we don't want to close the door, but we need also to protect our manufacturers. If there is something wrong, it's why the Rwanda Association is there. Yeah.
You'll come in, just don't worry, let's bring in Lilian, because Lilian actually made a point on this one, and she said there is need for creation of a regional, consumer consumption mechanism or plan, where we are pushing for Buy East Africa, Grow East Africa. And you are particularly concerned about these individual East African states campaigns that are promoting, Buy Rwanda, Buy Kenya, Buy Tanzania. And you're listening to her saying that they are actually okay with opening up and let others bring in, yet they are the ones who are consuming. Do you sense a sense of being real in what she says? Is this what is on the ground?
I think what we are saying is, let's work together. And Claudine said it very well. Let's unite and build East Africa. Go together. So we harmonize the processes, we harmonize the standards, and let the products circulate freely in the market. What is worrying about the Buy Uganda, Buy Rwanda campaigns, or Buy Kenya, is that the countries might get back into a protectionist kind of strategy. But we don't want to get there. We want East Africans to appreciate goods that are produced within the region. So as long as they meet the requirements for preferential treatment, they should be allowed to move or to circulate across the region. But we are also saying, let's develop a regional local content policy, which allows for local sourcing. That will create the demand within the manufacturing sector to help the manufacturers begin to see that there is need to expand, there is need to invest more so that we can meet the demand across the region. So if we are building a mega project in Rwanda, like the airport, we say this is the amount of steel that we need from the region, not just from Rwanda. This is the amount of cement that we need. So Simerwa may not be able to supply the full amount of cement that is required, but can supply a substantial amount. And then we source the rest from the companies across the region. So if we put out that tender, it should be East African, not necessarily Rwandan, but before we shouldn't source outside the region or import from outside the region before we utilize what is produced locally. So
listen, Laban, because when you hear this, and of course there are mega projects that are happening in Kenya, and the standard gauge railway, for instance, we've heard of citizens and government saying we will not outsource. Our people will be the first ones to benefit. And I'm listening to what Lilian is saying, and I'm wondering how realistic that will be.
We are launching the standard gauge railway line on the 31st of May, and that will run there. I had a chance to visit the project, go around, of course, on a coverage tour, and also the Lamu Port project. Now, there are two key issues that emerged. Where do you get your materials, and who do you employ into this fraternity? Then now we go back to the point of Jean-Baptiste. Truth be told, when I went to the Lamu port, you actually find that most of the jobs that are locally or that are the low-cadre jobs are what are left for the Africans to do. But we do not have the skills. If you look at some of the machinery, the high-tech machineries that are in these spaces, we don't have that. So when you talk about tapping into the diaspora market, we have people, and I've noticed Rwandans actually are very good at it. There are Rwandans who are based in the UK who are coming back and are now launching businesses or are now being more innovative into participating in that. And that should actually notice it's part of the points in the resolution that were looked at. So let's move away from skill. Let's go to the products and to the level of steel, the level of cement. Phyllis Okega, who's the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, actually attributed this on a panel discussion during this summit and said that they actually champion and they rally the government. How do we participate? If you want cement, we can get cement from Simerwa, it's fine. We can get cement from Bamburi. These three regional, I forget the Rwanda main cement producer, they look at Tororo, Tororo now, you look at Bamburi, you look at Simerwa. Can they come together and ask these Chinese people, what is that quality you're talking about? You know, how can we boost our quality? How can we look at that? So they did not manage to do that for the Standard Gauge Line. That's truth be told, but it is not too far off, because if you look at it, East Africa is growing. We are getting there. And just so you mentioned, actually, we had representatives from ECOWAS and you know, and COMESA just coming in and trying to really look at what is exactly happening here. So I would say, for East Africa, you know, as I said again, the train has left the station. Let me know it's the train example now, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done in terms of just tapping into the potential of these countries.
Tapping into the potential. Jean-Baptiste, please help us understand how realistic what Lilian says will be, especially when it comes to evading or running away from that thing that we all dread, protectionism. That there's a project that has to be done here, but we will start with our local citizens. And whether that is even wrong, because what are governments there for? At the end of the day, to provide job opportunities for their citizens and their manufacturing you know, companies. How can the East African Community Secretariat help in dealing with that challenge of avoiding protectionism alongside, you know, this whole campaigns that we see within individual EAC states?
The bottom line is partner states within their own economies, they're trying to strive so that, you know, they can ensure their manufacturers and their business people, their business community can actually produce and have high quality production, high quality products. And for them to do so, they need to have, you know, they need to have the demand. They need to have the demand. If you don't have demand, you cannot improve production. You cannot, you know, improve the quality of your production. Yeah. So where the demand will be coming through sensitization of the local. You have to start by the local. I'm not defending, you know, hindering intra-trade through local protection, but I'm saying we need to give time to partner states also to think, to ensure that they improve their own techniques, their own, you know, they produce for the existing demand, and they can improve even the demand before they procure from other partner states.
So what you're saying is you're going to give time for individual countries to build their industries, let them push, and then now let's think about going regional.
Yes, I have a second answer. Yeah. That is one. A second one is now, if countries, they have already managed to build their own internal domestic economies, so how can they now do trade with the other partner states? Right. So we have to ensure that we build supply chains in partner states. No single partner state can produce everything. So partner state, Kenya can produce this, be specialized in these particular products, and Rwanda can be specialized in these particular products, the same for other partner states. Okay. And when there are those supply chains, where I need something to procure for my industry, then I can get it from the other partner set.
Okay.
Yes.
We're going to talk to Claudine, and then we'll take a very short break after reading a couple of tweets. But you hear what he says. We are not trying to put the cart ahead of the horse. We want to build a supply chain. Chill, relax about this thing of being worried that, you know, there'll be protectionism. Let individual countries, first of all, build their industries, and then we can talk the region. Is this the right approach? Do you think this is way to go?
Not really. I disagree completely, because we signed the customs union 15 years ago. What did we mean by signing the customs union? We have a common market that is currently under implementation. We market EAC as one investment destination, as a wide market of 160 million people now. We say we ask companies, when we are talking about FDI, we say, come invest in East Africa, you will have access to the larger market. When the companies come here, we go back into our cocoons and say, we want to build our own economies first. Those companies are being attracted to the EAC because of the large market. Big market, yeah. And the World Bank has rated EAC as a fast integrating regional economic community. So I think that is a report that came about 2-3 years ago. But right now, as we speak, intra-EAC trade has gone down.
Yes.
Why is it going down? We must interrogate ourselves. It is going down because there are too many barriers. I'll give you one of the reasons. Then the new rules of origin that have been revised by the EAC partner states, they are very good in terms of simplifying the processes and making sure that it's easy for identification of goods across the region. Yeah. So that will help, but we need it done as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
The EAC Secretariat says the budget is not yet fully covered. We need partner states to put money into this process to support the manufacturing sector. So that if we are sourcing for raw materials, we have opportunity to source for those raw materials. Our manufacturing processes are recognized so that there is a CET band structure that really takes care of the differences. And we need to deal, now after the manufacturing has been done, we need to deal with the issues that are blocking the movement of the goods. The NTBs, if I may go back, there are NTBs that have been sitting on that list for years. And Jean Baptiste knows that. They have been listed and they are still being listed under the NTB monitoring mechanism, which is a regional structure. Why are they sitting on that list for so long? And then there are new NTBs that keep coming up. So what we are asking is, as intra-EAC trade is going down, and the ministers looked shocked that this is the case, as it is going down, why don't we sit down and say, let's resolve the issues to allow intra-EAC trade to grow? We are trading more with foreigners than we are trading with ourselves as East Africa after we have come together and said we are one. There is a problem.
Right.
Yes.
There is a problem. That's the point he makes. Claudine, I'm going to come to you. And of course, now on our question that we're having on the program tonight, can the manufacturing industry here in Rwanda satisfy the market needs right here? Let's start from Rwanda. Do you believe you have what it takes to actually satisfy the market here in Rwanda today?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Especially for the raw material, we don't have enough raw material. So I think if we think, as I said before, by one voice, and to think in the same mind, we can. I think with all partners, state partners, we can do the best if we are together. We can't do alone. Okay. We need all partners.
All right,
together.
Perfect. I'm told we have some tweets that have been coming through. Let's sample some of them that are already coming in, and of course, after that, we'll be able to go for a short break. We have one from ECASAB Regional, which says we need to help Africa export to China. We need to be leaders in structural transformation. And this is one thing that has been echoed right here on this particular program. Here we go. We have another one from Linda, which says the Minister, Francois Kanimba, Made in Rwanda is not about narrowly protecting Rwandan industry. It is about making it thrive in an open environment. I don't know if Lilian agrees with that. Do we have any other tweets? If we have any other one, just let me know. All right, there we go. Right, so we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll move the conversation a bit forward and, of course, tackle some of the other issues, including what your CS has done in Kenya concerning what is now called a U-turn on the ban on second-hand clothes and more to protect or to support the local textile industry. When we come back, do stay with us. This is In Focus. Keep tweeting. Hashtag is InFocusRW. We're back in just a short while. Stay with us.
Look around you. A lot is happening and a lot is undiscovered. On Primetime Live, we will bring you a precise, in-depth analysis of the many issues around us. Is it governance related, health, matters of politics, or even business? We will dig deep to bring you that. Only that. Here on Primetime Live, it's more than just a TV show.
right, thank you so much for still being with us. You're on In Focus. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Now, we're talking about the just concluded Manufacturers Business and Exhibition Summit that was held right here in Rwanda, the second edition. And of course, I'm being told right here that it was very successful. And I don't know if you're a manufacturer, I don't know what your thoughts are. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is InFocusRW. We'll be sampling some of your tweets in just a bit. We have Lilian Awinja, the Executive Director, EABC. We have Laban-Cliff Onsario, a good friend of mine, business journalist from Kenya. And of course, we have Jean-Baptiste, who's the Director, Productive Sector from the East African Community Secretariat. And we have none other than Claudine Mukeshimana, who's the Executive Director, Rwanda Association of Manufacturers. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, there is a very key concerning issue that actually took place a few weeks ago, and of course follows what the East African Community Secretariat and of course regional heads of state decided on, and that was a progressive ban on second-hand clothes to help grow the textile industries of the region. And just a few weeks ago we had news coming from Kenya that the CS actually seems to have made a U-turn on this and said that Kenya will actually allow for the Mitumbas to actually compete with other textiles. And I want to start first of all with Laban, because I want to understand, probably from a perspective of Kenya, how realistic this is, because this has been the argument by several consumers of Mitumba or second-hand clothes, that why not let them compete with the ones you want us to wear, because this is what we can afford. Why are you pushing us to buy the other ones which are sort of expensive for us? Is this reprieve for Mitumba consumers?
Well, Eugene, I'm very careful to comment about this because this is an election year. Mm-hmm. So was this ban perhaps politically instigated? Mm-hmm. Who knows? The CS, of course, acting under instructions, had reviewed that ban. But if you look at it, and to your question and to really your example, it is actually cheaper to buy your own products locally. Mm-hmm. I was shocked beyond words, like when I noticed products that you'd see in London shops, like really, Calvin Klein, name it, the Louis Vuittons and what have you, are actually made in Kenya. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when the president actually opened up the market and said, guys, come to Kenyatta International Conference Center and actually buy. And though at rock bottom prices. So I was shocked because I cannot afford that, say an original Calvin Klein, for instance, tailored in Kenya, mm-hmm. shipped all the way to the UK. I cannot afford it there. Mm-hmm. But it was actually being sold in Kenya, say for instance, about for $5. Mm-hmm. So back to the Mutumba argument, the Mutumba, they would say that, okay, for instance, we cannot be able to afford this. Truth be told, that's not the case. If the government reviews the taxes that are charged for all these products that are being shipped outside to just kind of open up, because they're all tax-free. What the president did is actually ensure that, give it out for everyone to just come in and shop and give them tax-free. Yeah. But anyway, that's just an example to show that it's actually affordable, to make sure that you can actually wear and dress properly. It was even shocking, like even just this week, the Right Honorable Prime Minister from Uganda said, how many of you are actually wearing suits mm-hmm. that are made mm-hmm. within East Africa? Mm-hmm. And everyone was lost for words. Actually, even the room, everyone was just laughing because honestly, it's true. We are not actually proud to wear our own products locally. So I would say I will not use the Kenyan example as a perfect example as the way to go, because as I said again, being an election year, things might change. Right. But then again, what is the benefit? What is the proper thing to do for the benefit of East Africa? It's actually ensuring that people can actually buy their own products. Right.
You bring a good point of making it affordable mm-hmm. locally. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what is the concern of many consumers, of whoever you tell, why are you not wearing an ESC-made kind of garment, mm-hmm. and you're wearing that second-hand cloth or whatever it is, they will always tell you that the pricing is actually high and for the locally produced garments. And so how do we deal with this particular issue? Because at the end of the day, this is what seems to be the impending issue standing on the way of people consuming locally made garments.
Yeah, thank you. I think let me go back to the question. Can regional manufacturers satisfy the East African market? Mm-hmm. How can we do so that they satisfy the East African market? Mm-hmm. We need to promote them. So that's what the heads of the state did. Mm-hmm. They came up with a decision to guide the East African Secretariat to come up with the modalities to promote our local industries so that we can actually have those products, much of those products that we import from outside, which actually they make big. They increase our importation bill. If you look at the importation bill of textile or clothes and the apparels, or the importation bill of shoes and the other footwear, even other leather products, it is so huge. It is so huge. And it can be used to invest domestically so that you can produce the same that we import from outside. The same for automotive industry, though your question was on the used clothes. Yeah. So let me correct one thing. It is not a gradual ban. It is a phase out. Phase out is a gradual reduction of importation of used clothes and used shoes. So we are not banning anything. Actually, some of our detractors, that's what they use to say that this is a ban. And some, actually, this has created a very huge affliction outside there from some of the suppliers, even from US. And we saw it recently. They really sent to us their lobbies, and they are very much mad at us.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you know, whichever word we use, we're trying to discourage the use of second-hand clothes and eventually also second-hand locomotive. But at the end of the day, what alternative are we giving? Because at the end of the day, if we just say it by words and write them in statements, but our textile industries are still down there on the ground as far as, you know, the machinery, the environment for them is not good. Are we just telling people, stop, don't use it, but not give them the alternative to use them? Probably this question is good for Lilian to tell us from the perspective of the business community and how they look at this.
What we had expected, we as East Africa Business Council had also proposed this progressive phase out, and we are happy that it was taken up by the summit, discussed through the EAC structures, and agreed at the summit that we do it. What we expected was not for the revenue authorities to quickly put duty on the mitumbas. That was putting the cart ahead of the horse. We were supposed to sit down and say, okay, so as a region, how do we do the progressive phase out? One of the things that the region needs to do is to look at it from two perspectives. One, we need to develop the cotton value chain to be able to produce the cotton so that it can be used in the production of clothes. But we also, in the meantime, while we are developing the value chain, what do we do at the moment? We can import fabric. Let industries be set here in East Africa, bring in fabric and stitch the clothes here, but also create the demand for those clothes. And what we have proposed is for the governments to first of all source locally. They should buy these clothes. So let our uniforms be stitched here. The uniforms for the army, for the police, for the hospitals, for the schools, let them be stitched locally. That will create demand in this industry. So we need also to give incentives to the companies that are setting up to produce clothes locally. So if somebody will set up a company that will be producing clothes, what incentives are we giving them other than leaving them to the fate of industrialization? We need to take decisive steps because we have decided to do it. So clothes, footwear, allow factories to be set up that will have some incentives. Give them 10 years tax break and say, if you invest in this area, one, you'll bring the raw material free of charge, without duties, and then you will also have a tax break so that they can have time to set up and grow. And the issue of the EPZs, there is a regional law that defines what EPZs were set up for. And EPZs, according to their setup, they were set up for export. So unless we agree at the regional level and say, okay, we want to change this structure and say the EPZs can be able to sell locally, they have a 20% percentage which they can send locally. But if we want to increase that percentage, it has to be agreed at the regional level. But we also have to see how will that affect other manufacturers that are outside the EPZs. Because we have textile factories that are not in the EPZs. Yes. They will not be able to compete if we just open up and bring the EPZ products on the market. And the price of $5 is not realistic. It cannot be realistic. Of course, perhaps the government has subsidized it to a large extent. And being an election year, it is possible that politicians are taking advantage of that situation. But it needs to be done properly at the regional level and then implemented in all the partner states. Even the progressive phase out, you see Rwanda is charging higher duties than the other partner states. Others said we will not implement, we will remain at zero, or we will remain at a low level of duties. We need to agree at the regional level on the rate and say this year we are putting this rate, next year we shall increase. That is the phase out we are talking about. Next year we increase by 5% or 10%, and then we increase like that progressively across the region, so that we don't have mitumbas going in large amounts to some countries and to some others there is none at all.
Yes. This also brings you to a question. Are the regional member states getting out of hand for you, the Secretariat, to actually handle such things, that every individual country is doing things as they wish and as they want, but depending on what they want to achieve?
Actually, there were two directives, one the 16th summit and the other one the 17th. That's where they decided that partner states should phase out, use the clothes and use the shoes. And they gave them 3 years for phasing out. And some partner states who were ready, they started already phasing out, like Rwanda, including Rwanda. And then they recommended that they directed the Secretariat to come up with the modalities for phasing out used clothes. So under modalities, actually, what do we have? We have the measures, quick measures that will help us actually, the phasing out process go on smoothly. If we stop new clothes coming from outside, how much are we going to produce from inside so that we can offset that gap?
I want to bring in Claudine, but before bringing Claudine, the feeling on the ground is that, especially for those who actually are consumers of the second-hand clothes, was that the leaders were insensitive to their needs, especially their buying capacities and spending capacities, because they argue and say, from what Laban even said, how many of us are even actually using those locally produced garments, the suits that we see our leaders walking around with. It has to start from the top. Then for us, we can be able to feel that even them, they're actually backing this whole course. Do you sense the same feeling, or what would you tell these people who have this thought?
That's correct. We have completed studies under cotton, textile and apparels, and even studies under leather and leather products. And some of the policy recommendations that I cannot, of course, tell here because they are still under review by the Sectoral Council in charge of trade, industry and investment. But there are measures which are to address those kind of, challenges or issues that people are coming up. And for sure they will be addressed. Once they are applied, and once we create the conducive environment to apply those measures, I think some of the problems that people have now, they will be addressed.
Right. Claudine, the argument is that your manufacturers, or those who are actually dealing in locally made garments, are having their prices shot way up and not consider these people who are consuming the chagua, and so leaving them with no option but to continue wanting more of chagua to come into the country. What did you tell them?
Actually, we are happy with the policy to reduce the mitumba. For example, if I give you an example for Textile, now Textile can. Why do we need bed sheets, occasional bed sheets? We don't need them. Textile can do it, can satisfy the market. You see, and if we do properly, as Lilian said, everybody will find something. We don't. I think if we put the policy there, we should follow together. Kenya cannot say this one and Rwanda. We should start at the same time and arrive at the same time. Not,
one arriving before the other
give
one.
a window to escape. That is my point.
Yeah, but people say that those products are expensive. That's always the argument. That's always the pushing factor. That we cannot consume, this made in Rwanda clothes because they are just expensive. The designers don't have us in their mind. They have the expatriates and the outside market in mind as far as spending capacity is concerned?
That is not true. That is not true. For example, for the people from rural area, you know the Kitenge, some of them are from China, but Textile can do it. Maybe they should improve the quality, but give them the window to improve. Why should Textile should invest a lot of money in that, and at the same time they continue to invest in Michumba?
So it's not going to help. Laban,
yes.
Your quick takeaway as far as this whole conversation is concerned, and which way forward on this second-hand clothes, as far as, with the whole aim of supporting the textile industry, because we seem to want that to end, but the progress of supporting the textile industries doesn't seem to be going in the same pace.
Well, I think there's a lot to be done. I would just attribute it to how I see it in Kenya. I know there's Jaswinda Bedi, who's been kind of a renowned practitioner in this matters to do with textile industry. I would go back to the initial point, which is really the perception mode into it. I remember there's a chat we were having with a friend of mine, and he said, so you have two options. The doctor said that you're going to go into hospital, and you have two options, either to go through a machine or through a scan of a machine made in Kenya or a machine made, say, in India or wherever. Which of the two machines would you choose to be scanned with? And really it got me thinking, is like, okay, well, because this is my life, I'd rather a machine that maybe perhaps is made abroad. Going back to the other perception, which is, okay, which one do you feel more proud of? In fact, just during the show, I was trying to check my suit. I was trying to say, where is it actually made? Because I'm actually embarrassed, because it's true. Because yes, I'm actually the first person who would say, maybe I'll look good in this other product as opposed to this other product. Yeah. But you look at Lilian's attire and you say, okay, this is a proper, African attire, and it'll be like, we'll be proud to be seen out there that I'm actually wearing an African attire. So if we also now push I'm not looking at it from this other side, because let the policy players, let the leaders, let the manufacturers just work on the other side, which is terms of just feeding the market. And then on this other end now, we look at how do we drive demand? Because as John Baptiste said, is that from this other part, if we actually have people saying that, we want to support our own, then if you pull in demand, then it's going to apply pressure on both of them to make sure that the actually policies are in place. The manufacturers are going to make sure that they actually satisfy the demand, because yes, indeed, they're satisfying a need. As much as they can see the demand is there, they want to make a kill for it. So from the consumer side, I think it begins the perception that we actually have a good product. We actually have a lot of resources that we have not utilized. And until we just change our mindset and ensure that, you'll feel proud going on air with a suit made from Rwanda, then you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah.
You also putting me on the spot. Lilian, actually, I'm just representing some of the views I've seen from different platforms, especially on this matter. You say supporting our own, and those consumers actually say that, but when are they going to support us also? Because they don't have us in their mind when it comes to their pricing and stuff like that. How do we balance this? The local producers or manufacturers or designers, want to tap into this available market, but there is also the issue of the cost that it takes them to actually make this. And most of them have come under fire. You call your clothes made in Rwanda, but what is Rwandan in it? Because the cotton you brought it from China. The Uzi, the Sindano, the Charani, all the machines, all of them are from abroad. What is Rwandan in it? There's that argument. So how do they balance that particular issue that is coming up as far as prices and quality is concerned?
There's nothing that is impossible, Eugene, with the right environment. So what we need is for the ESC governments to put in place an environment that will allow these industries to set up, that will allow them to grow. Once they start production, it will be impossible for them to produce for only the higher cadre. It will not be possible for them. If they are given an incentive, for example, it will bring down the cost of production. We are saying the cost of production in East Africa is very high. One of the inputs is electricity, power, for example. And we are saying, let's have a tariff structure that recognizes who is buying more power, so that the industries can pay less than, and the households, because they are almost retailing, they buy less power, they should pay more than the industries who are buying in bulk. So let's reduce the cost of production. Give them incentives. They will be able to start the production. And then the other issue, what will come in automatically is that they have to produce for both the high level and the low level. It's happening in China. If you go to China, you'll find you can buy something that is going to the US. It is a different quality from what they actually bring to Africa. So we are not saying we should pick the same standards and produce very low quality. We are saying you can produce for the different categories. It is possible to do that in the East African countries. We produce a bigger blue band for those who can buy a bigger blue band, and we produce a smaller one, kadogo, for those who want to buy. So we can do it in the cotton and textile sector. Produce the ones that are cheaper for those that can afford it, and produce the designer suits for those who want the designer suits. So the correct environment will begin the process. We make sure people are investing in the manufacture, and we should not be worried about the inputs coming from elsewhere. We've got to start somewhere. Let the industry set up, import the fabric and stitch it locally. The inputs, many of the inputs will be local. So what is Rwandan in it is that the labor is Rwandan, the stitching is Rwandan, it is produced here locally. So we start there as we develop the value chain. Right. Finally, when the factories are set up, we will have those who will start producing the thread to be able to supply them, because we have created the demand around it. If government says we are going to source, you are going to produce for us uniforms for the army, surely that is a very big demand, which means these guys have to style up and make sure they supply. And another factory will set up, because one is not enough. So we'll have several factories set up. People will begin to see that this is a source of employment. It is a source of, it's increasing the economy, improving the economy of the region. So let's start doing it. Let's stop giving excuses. The government should do their part, provide the incentives, provide the structure within which we can operate, and it should be done at regional level. We as business people will step in and support them.
Perfect. In closing now, Laban, I'm sure there will be a third edition of the Manufacturing Business and Exhibition Summit. What will you be taking them on, the organizers, when now we'll reach that time when we're having the third one, as far as delivery and ensuring that whatever happened in Rwanda was not just a talking shop, and that they will go and implement? What are those three things, let's say, that came out of it as far as recommendations that you'll be taking on the organizers and the participants on?
I mean, Eugene, let me commit that I'll definitely be part of the summit if Lilian allows me to be part of it. Because other than just hosting, I think the being at the front row seat, and that's what we say in the call to journalism, is that you actually get to understand what are the business leaders saying, what are the government saying, and what are the manufacturers saying, and you actually get to listen to them. Judging from it, perhaps maybe the score of 2 was very unfair, but I'm looking at the long-term goal. I'm looking at the potential that this kind of forum has to actually just spur trade and spur development in the region. In closing, I'll just say this. There isn't any other better time to be in East Africa. And there isn't any other place to invest than the region at large. And I think even as storytellers in the business community, there isn't any other better time to be in the region. And there's still a lot more to look forward to.
A lot more to look forward to. Jean-Baptiste, looking at what was said, dwindling intra-regional trade. She spoke of still non-tariff barriers standing on the way, the bottlenecks. What will your secretariat be looking at as far as ensuring that whatever was discussed here is actually put to practice?
Thank you very much. One is no going back to decisions and the directives of the heads of the state. We have to implement to ensure that when we go for the next summit, we are reporting results. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Claudine, the people who this summit was for, what do you take home with you after this summit? What are the things that you'll be looking for to ensure that the Secretariat is actually implementing and the Business Council is actually talking with one voice concerning or about?
What I learned, and I have to put in mind every time, is to think as one country, not looking in Rwanda only, and to really to start from now to think about that region, not what I mean. And what I want to emphasize also, if our governments make decision, we should follow at at the same moment.
Of course, thank you for your thoughts and for coming over. Thank you so much also for watching. In Focus RW is the hashtag. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's get to hear from you. What are your thoughts from the statements that have been made right here on this program tonight? And of course, we'll be able to follow up these conversations. They end here, but of course, they keep going on our social media platforms, and probably we'll be able to do another round depending on your thoughts on that. So I want to thank you for watching. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.